Alright, this video is about a Turning Points USA conference that happened last weekend that Brandi Love, which is a pseudonym for a porn star, but she's also a very staunch conservative. She writes for the Federalist. I mean, if she would be a conservative she's gone too all in. So she's definitely a conservative, and she wasn't allowed to attend the event, probably because publicly the Republican Party and conservatives maintain that they have a very strong anti-porn policy that I can explain. I'm going to have to explain in another video, but basically, at least publicly, they're very against pornography. Privately, we know things are definitely a bit different for a lot of the men, and statistically speaking, some of the women, they probably are well aware of her because they probably don't read her Federalist articles, but watch her movies. So that's kind of the joke on that. Also, seeing most of the Republican scandals of late, most of them would actually try offering to see how much money they have to pay for her so they could have sex with her. That's what I think their policy would actually be. Although, based on scandals, most of the oldest, she's 13 years too old for pretty much every Republican. And based on the scandals that have happened, generously, I would say she's between 33 and 25 years too old for most Republicans to try to pay to have sex with. A joke issue that actually came up was Anna Luna, who was a former Turning Points USA employee, is now managed to get her opponent, Matt Tito, kicked out of the conference, and she's accusing him of basically having a murder for hire plot against her. Although, I mean, that's for the law enforcement and the courts to kind of sort out. So that's another kind of messed up thing, because if she's lying, that's perjury, and she's going to prison, and she'd be going to prison for that. Next up was they allowed a guy named Jonathan Riches. Basically, the big deal about that is he's a federal convicted felon that hasn't been pardoned, and so taking any political action committee, political party, anything like that, taking money from him is illegal. Okay, so that's actual crime. Then the next thing is James OKeefe, who runs this thing called the Veritas Project. oddly in Latin veritas means truth, but in reality, if you ever had an interview with him, it would probably last about 3 hours, and then the published one would be about 7 minutes long, and it would be nothing but you talking about crimes you've committed and all that stuff, even if you haven't. So he's a known liar. The other big issue is, I think, was Republicans say it was, or Turning Point said it was about inclusion, free speech, and then, well, mainly inclusion and free speech. So that makes it stupid why they would not allow people to attend. I mean, granted, the Matt Tito situation is a bit different, but the Jonathan Riches, they shouldn't have allowed him to attend, and they definitely should not have took money from him. And that's that, but mainly what they're going after is YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter basically banning them. And also 4chan has got cracked down on them for a lot of things. And what everyone forgets is this is a consequence of their actions. Okay? And basically, when you plan a coup and you fail, there are heavy consequences, and that's why those sites have clamped down heavily on a lot of people. Matter of fact, if you want to find anything on QAnon right now, you're pretty much limited to a site called OKeefe, which I'm not going to get into, and a lot of internet service providers actually block it. So you need a dark web browser, but if you want to go there and talk about whatever, that's your business. And the thing is, the other argument is, if there is, why it's not censorship, why Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter being kicked off them isn't censorship, is because your idea, even though they're not allowed on, what people forget is these are private companies, and it's basically like Google or whoever heads of Twitter or Mark Zuckerberg letting you play in their backyard, and he has his rules, and if you don't follow his rules, he will kick you out. But the thing is, even though something's not available on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, it's still available through other markets. It's just they don't get the foot traffic. And if you build your own, it's probably not going to have the same level of foot traffic as a Facebook or Twitter, which is kind of what happens when you do something first and best, That's why people make a big deal about getting banned or thrown off their sites. Okay, but that's where the Republicans really are on free speech. They're not like where Nina Hartley is, where freedom of speech leads to excess. And when you have excess, that basically is what the entire adult entertainment industry is based off of, taking your freedom to the most excess it can be, but that's how free speech works. Another thing is, like, when it comes to the current state of the Republican Party and conservatives and, say, the Ku Klux Klan, you gotta understand, yes, they do have the right to speak, and they do have the right to say very messed up things. And legally, you can't do much about it, but if there's certain other things that these militias, there's other ways to handle these militias, mainly with firearms violations, because a lot of them possess Class 3 firearms and weapons without the proper permits, so that's the big deal. That's where they generally go after groups like that. It is a crime. Like, if you saw down a shotgun, that makes it a Class 3 weapon, so you have to go through the ATF, get all the permits, and if you made it yourself, if you sawed it off on your own, it's really illegal. All right? But you can't attack them on what they have to say. All right, but then again, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube can say, hey, I don't want you in my backyard, and that's basically where they're at with that. So that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to get, what they're really saying is, we want access to someone who's denying us access to their property. All right. Otherwise, I do have to bring up that last year I was homeless. I took a really bad beating. And I'm trying to have a GoFundMe where I'm trying to raise money to get the surgeries I need. Even though I am on Medicare, I can't. They've deemed all of them voluntary, or like one of them is with the dental stuff, which no dental stuff is covered by Medicare. The issue is no dentist will give me dentures because I have a really bad gag reflex, and I would basically be constantly spitting them out and hacking when I put them in. So they say I would need both arches replaced. Another thing I need is basically I have issues with blunt force trauma to my sinuses, but every EMT I've been to is saying, fix your teeth before you take care of, before I can see what's wrong with you. And then on top of that, I have some sort of spinal injury that they'll only treat with an epidural, but I think surgery would be a better way to go, because steroids don't play well with all the other medications I take. And then I've got some sort of injury, some sort of really bad soft tissue injury somewhere below my rib cage that they need to figure out what it is and go from there, but Medicare says it's treatable through non-opiate pain medications, so I'm kind of screwed on that also. Alright, thank you for watching this video, and goodbye, and there will be a lot of videos I have to bring out about the Turning Points USA Conference and Brandi Love's view of the Republican Party and the current state of the Republican Party, that most Republicans won't really admit to. Alright, bye.